If that be so, I've made my point. I think we should rejoice with a broad smile on our 66th Independence Day. We have come a long way. In 1931, Winston Churchill, in a derogatory reference to India, said that India is a mere geographical term. It is no more a united nation than the equator. 66 years later, Winston Churchill has been proved terribly wrong.
It was not an easy job to achieve this independence. In fact, the Honorable Chief Justice is a self-made person. Mr. Salman Kursi is a member of the Supreme Court Bar Association, and he celebrates 33rd year as a member of the Supreme Court Bar Association. He came out member in 1979. We are proud to be Indians. In fact, there is no doubt that India is now recognized amongst the important countries of the world. And there are many important foreigners who have recognized India, and if I may quote some of them, American writer Mark Twain said this about Indians, and I quote him: "So far as I am able to judge, nothing has been left undone, either by man or nature, to make India the most extraordinary country that the sun visits on his rounds. Nothing seems to have forgotten, nothing overlooked."
The Supreme Court Bar Association Vice President Mr. Khanna, Acting Honorary Secretary Mr. Mishra, very distinguished senior colleagues, and members of the bar, ladies and gentlemen. This, of course, is both important as indeed a natural celebration for all of us on an occasion where we recognize the services of the legion of great freedom fighters and those who have built India since independence, institutions of our country, aspirations of our country, serviced by generations that have passed before us. But as I stand here today to join you in the celebration of independent India, I cannot but say that this independence, although brought about by strife and struggle of some extremely eminent public figures, is an independence that is secured, maintained, preserved and protected in myriad ways by generations of judges who have adorned the corridors and the portals of the Supreme Court of our country, as indeed the very distinguished high courts across the country. And therefore I stand here to pay tribute not only to the freedom fighters who gave us freedom, but to you as freedom fighters who preserved our freedom. And I hope that this is more than just a symbolic gesture, that we can make today not simply a symbolic reiteration and reaffirmation of our commitment to independence and freedom, but also to make it a substantive occasion and a moment which I believe in his speech to you justice will certainly show the way forward on. We have heard him in the past, and we have been inspired greatly both by the speeches that we have heard on occasions such as this one, and indeed by the lead that he's given to the Honorable Supreme Court, very distinguished judges who are present here, in taking the law in a direction that I believe will meet the true aspirations of the people of our country. As I stand here today, we gather to celebrate this momentous occasion. We cannot but be conscious of enormous challenges that face our society. The Prime Minister spoke this morning of the aspirations of millions of our people for education, for release from poverty, for emancipation from disadvantage, and also to live a happy, good and prosperous life. And what we as a nation have a commitment to. But somewhere in those challenges are also what I call philosophical challenges. Philosophical challenges where claims and counterclaims of equity, where re-engineering and reprocessing our thought processes in this country, as indeed looking and fine-tuning institutions that should deliver according to the will of the people. And I do believe that there is a great role that is both played and has to be played by the Supreme Court of our country. The Supreme Court will lead us towards a new definition of the philosophy of the welfare of our people, of public interest, and indeed of what equity means both between generations as well as competing claims within a generation. And I must acknowledge and say this on behalf of the government, that we have been enlightened, inspired, and guided enormously by the wisdom of the Supreme Court. If it appears sometimes that we are constrained to disagree, and disagree in a manner in which the Constitution permits, in the limited way in which the Constitution in separation of powers allows a wholesome tension to exist between different organs of government, so as to provide from the thesis and antithesis the synthesis that is ultimately good for the entire country and our people. It is simply because we honestly believe that there can be differences between honest people, between global states.
And when you look comparatively with other jurisprudence, with other jurisdictions, particularly in our neighboring countries, we realize the value of the aspirations, the constitutional ideals, the principles which are enshrined in the Constitution. Today, as the Law Minister said, time has come for the Supreme Court to give some sort of a guidance for the future. And it is my endeavor not to advise the government, but to take into account certain concerns which over the years we are required to take note of. The purpose of my today's address is to highlight the importance of judicial independence. Judicial independence consists of decisional independence and institutional independence of the judicial branch under the Constitution of India. Over the last 65 years, the Supreme Court has rendered several landmark judgments on fundamental rights, on human rights, environmental laws, Article 21 rights. However, very few landmark judgments have been delivered on the constitutional structure provided for under the Indian Constitution, which deals with distribution of legislative powers, provisions dealing with relationship between the center and the states, establishment and constitution of the Supreme Court, power of appointment of judges, impeachment proceedings, etc. Friends, I am emphasizing this point for a different reason. The reason being that I find in this country illiteracy as far as constitutional concepts and principles are concerned. We need more and more learning on the constitutional principles. This is across the board. I am not only referring to schools or studies or students in the schools. We quote concepts at random. It applies even to judges. And this sometimes results in judicial overreach. The point which I am trying to make is that when we interpret, we have to keep in mind the text of the Constitution also before us. We must also keep in mind the constitutional debates when we interpret a particular article of the Constitution. When you interpret the article of a fundamental right, we must also keep in mind that there is an institutional structure and architecture of the Constitution which provides for checks and balances. Sometimes in our anxiety to do justice, we give an interpretation which may disturb the constitutional balance between the three branches of the government. In yesterday's presidential address, the President lightly remarked that institutions are interface and that interface needs to be protected. And unless the judges take an overall study of the Constitution, and including the laws, we sometimes quote phrases from the preamble, we the people, rule of law. All these are very wide concepts. They have to be interpreted keeping in mind the checks and balances within the system.
Propose vote of thanks on this auspicious occasion of 66th Independence Day celebration. On behalf of Supreme Court Bar Association and my own behalf, I wish to thank Honorable Mr. Justice S.S. Kapadia, the Chief Justice of India and other honorable judges of Supreme Court for gracing this occasion. I am also grateful to Mr. Salman Khurshid, Honorable Minister for Law and Justice and Minority Affairs for gracing this occasion. I am extremely grateful to Learned Attorney General for India, Mr. Z. Vanwati, and learned law officers, Secretary General and other Registrar of Supreme Court, Honorable Retired
सुनाता हूँ जहाँ की रीत सदा
नफरत चाहता